The massive Vexillor capital ship Eternal Dominance hung in space like a dark monolith, its crystalline surfaces reflecting the distant stars. Supreme Commander Kroth Dasrillian stood on the command deck, his 6 eyes narrowed at the view screen. "Confirm." "That reading," he ordered, mandibles clicking with irritation. "Confirmed, Supreme Commander," replied Lieutenant Avexi. "The vessel appears to be human." Kroth's exoskeleton bristled. The humans, a primitive species from a backwater system, had barely achieved faster-than-light travel a mere 60 years ago. The Galactic Vexillor Empire had been crossing the stars for 20 millennia. "Impossible," he hissed. "Humans are technologically insignificant. They shouldn't be this far into Vexillor space." The vessel approaching them defied all Vexillor intelligence reports. It was asymmetrical, with sharp angles and exposed hull sections that any proper engineer would have considered incomplete. Most peculiar were the weapon arrays, arranged seemingly at random, without the elegant mathematical precision that defined proper warship design. "They're hailing us," announced Communications Officer Newsry. "Put them through," Kroth ordered. Straightening his ceremonial carapace, a human appeared on screen, pale-skinned with bright red facial hair. "This is Captain Kendra Orlov of the Earth Confederation vessel Reckless Ingenuity. You're in violation of the Proxima Accords." Kroth nearly choked on his respiratory enzymes. "We are the Vexillor Empire. We recognize no such accords." The human smiled, a disturbing expression showing too many teeth. "You will. We've been monitoring your incursions into the Andromeda tributary systems. Those worlds asked for our protection." "Protection? From primitives?" Kroth couldn't contain his derision. "Your species emerged from your gravity well less than a century ago. Yet here we are," Orlov replied with that unsettling smile. "You have one standard cycle to withdraw your forces." The transmission ended. "Such arrogance," Kroth roared. "Target their vessel. Let's demonstrate proper Imperial protocol." The Eternal Dominance unleashed its primary particle beam, enough energy to vaporize a small moon. The human ship should have disintegrated instantly. Instead, the beam bent around. What in the void?" Kroth whispered. The human ship accelerated suddenly, moving with impossible agility for its size. Before anyone could react, it had positioned itself behind the Imperial flagship. "They've locked weapons!" Newsry cried out. When the human vessel fired, it wasn't the expected energy beam. Instead, projectiles, actual physical projectiles, erupted from multiple ports. Kroth watched in horror as these primitive kinetic weapons somehow bypassed their advanced shields and penetrated the hull with devastating precision. "How?" he demanded as alarms blared. "Our shields are quantum-phased. Physical objects shouldn't—" "They're using some kind of trans-dimensional acceleration," the science officer reported, mandibles trembling. "The projectiles exist partially outside normal space until impact." Around them, the pride of the Vexillor fleet began to fail as systems crashed. One by one, a second transmission came through. Captain Orlov appeared again, expression unchanged. "That was a warning shot, Commander. We disabled your weapons and propulsion without casualties. Next time, we won't be so accommodating." As the transmission ended, Kroth stared at the view screen. In disbelief. "That's a human warship?" he whispered. "Impossible. Absolutely unacceptable." Grand Imperator Zilvax's voice echoed through the high command chamber, all 8 of his limbs gesticulating wildly. "A single human vessel disabled our flagship? The Eternal Dominance has never known defeat in 12 centuries of service." Around the Obsidian Table, the Vexillor High Command, the most powerful military minds in the galaxy, shifted uncomfortably. Admiral Vectra, her carapace bearing the scars of 100 campaigns, spoke first. "The intelligence failure is catastrophic. Imperator, humans were designated threat level Epsilon 3, barely worth monitoring." "Clearly," Zilvax hissed, "our assessment was flawed." Holographic displays showed the human ship's unconventional design, rotating slowly above the table. Strategic analyst Forex pointed to various sections with a chitinous appendage. Their technology defies our understanding. These aren't refinements of known principles. They're entirely novel approaches. They've developed along a completely different technological path than any species we've encountered. How is this possible? Demanded Zilvax Fleet Admiral Morix, oldest and most decorated of the commanders, leaned forward. Isolation. We've assumed technological development follows a predictable trajectory. The humans, confined to their single system until recently, were forced to innovate without outside influence. What do we know about their capabilities? Zilvax asked. Very little, admitted Intelligence Director Crixus. The ship that confronted the Eternal Dominance demonstrated transdimensional weapons technology, energy deflection systems, and propulsion that violates our understanding of inertia. One ship, Zilvax contemplated. Perhaps an anomaly. Their most advanced vessel. No, Crixus said quietly. We've intercepted their communications. This Captain Orloff referred to her vessel as a light cruiser. If true, this represents only a fraction of their military capability. Silence fell over the chamber. We must respond with overwhelming force, Admiral Vectra finally declared. Assemble the 7th Fleet. 200 warships should suffice to obliterate this human presence. I concur. Zilvax nodded. Dispatch. The fleet immediately. We will crush this impudent species and add their unique technology to our own. 3 days later, the 7th Fleet arrived at the designated coordinates near the Andromeda tributary. Admiral Vectra commanded from the super dreadnought Inevitable Conquest. Scan for human vessels, she ordered. Admiral, her sensor officer, responded. We're detecting hundreds of ships. The view screen activated, showing not the handful of vessels they expected, but an entire battle group. Human ships of various designs formed a defensive perimeter around the inhabited worlds. They knew we were coming, Vectra realized. A communication request flashed on her console. With reluctance, she accepted. The human who appeared wasn't Captain Orlov, but an older male with dark skin and silver hair. This is Admiral Rashid Nassar of the Earth Confederation Defense Fleet. You have entered protected space with a hostile formation. Withdraw immediately. We are the Vexillor Empire, Vectra responded proudly. We do not withdraw. These systems belong to us by right of imperial mandate, Admiral Nassar sighed. I was afraid you'd say that. Very well. The transmission ended. Before Vectra could issue orders, the human fleet vanished from sensors. Where did they... Her question was answered as human vessels materialized throughout her formation, somehow bypassing the considerable distance instantly. They weren't using conventional FTL, they had teleported. Open fire! She screamed. The battle lasted exactly 6 minutes and 23 seconds. The emergency meeting of the Imperial Scientific Directorate had never seen such chaos. Fragments of Vexillor warships, the pride of the 7th Fleet, orbited the conference station as a grim reminder of their failure. 178 vessels lost, Science Director Zalzon announced, neural tendrils twitching with distress. 22 escaped. The humans suffered no confirmed casualties. Grand Imperator Zilvax's carapace had darkened with stress pigmentation. How? Explain how this happened. Zalzon activated the holographic display. We've analyzed the battle recordings. The humans utilized at least 7 technologies previously unknown to us. The display showed human ships disappearing and reappearing inside the Vexillor formation. First, some form of localized space folding. Not traditional teleportation, they're briefly connecting 2 points in space-time. The hologram shifted to show human vessels absorbing direct hits from Vexillor weapons. Second, their defensive systems don't deflect energy. They absorb and repurpose it. The more we fired, the stronger their shields became. By the void, whispered someone at the table. Their weapon systems are equally baffling, Zalzan continued. They use gravitational manipulation to accelerate projectiles to near-light speeds, while simultaneously phasing them partially outside normal space-time. Our shields, designed to repel energy, are utterly ineffective. Military technologist, Revix interjected, what's most disturbing is their power generation. Our estimates suggest each human vessel produces at least 30 times the energy output of our comparable ships, yet we detect no conventional reaction signatures. How is this possible? Zilvax demanded again. An uncomfortable silence fell over the chamber before Zalzan spoke. We believe they're harnessing vacuum energy directly from subspace. Gasps echoed around the table. Theoretical physicists had speculated about such technology for millennia, but it had always been deemed impossible. There's more, Revix added. We intercepted internal communications from their fleet. Their weapons and defensive technologies appear to be outdated. By their standards? Outdated? Zilvax repeated incredulously. Yes, Imperator. References were made to retrofitted frontier fleet vessels and older generation systems. They don't consider these ships their primary defense force. The implications hung heavily in the chamber. If these were merely outdated vessels, we need to learn more, Zilvax finally declared. Deploy intelligence assets. I want infiltration of human space immediately. There's a problem with that approach, Imperator, said Intelligence Coordinator Pixis. Our standard infiltration methods rely on our telepathic adepts, but initial attempts to read human minds have been problematic. Explain. The human brain functions differently from any species we've encountered. Our adepts describe the experience as swimming in chaos. 3 have suffered psychic trauma attempting deep reads. Then we try a different approach, Zilvax decided. Diplomatic contact, we invite them to negotiate. Negotiate? Admiral Vectra, one of the few survivors of the battle, sounded scandalized. With primitives? With a species whose outdated technology obliterated our fleet, Zilvax corrected. We need time to understand what we're facing. Within days, a communication channel was established with the human leadership. To the Vexiller's surprise, the humans agreed to talks immediately. The diplomatic vessel Peaceful Discourse departed for the designated neutral location, carrying Diplomat Prime Thexus and a team of the Empire's finest negotiators and scientists. What they discovered there would change the Empire forever. The neutral meeting ground was a barren moon orbiting, a gas giant in unclaimed space. Diplomat Prime Thexus watched through the viewport as the human vessel approached, a sleek, gleaming craft without visible weapons. No armaments, noted Security Chief Mirovex. Perhaps a genuine peace overture? Or their weapons are simply concealed, Thexus replied. Assume nothing about these humans. The diplomatic team assembled in the portable atmospheric dome erected on the moon's surface. Thexus had studied human physiology extensively during the journey, bipedal mammals with concerning environmental adaptability. Their history was equally troubling, a species that had nearly destroyed itself multiple times yet emerged stronger after each crisis. When the human delegation entered, Thexus was struck by their physical diversity, varying heights, skin pigmentations, facial structures. Leading them was a tall female with ebony skin and silver-streaked hair. Ambassador Imani Okoro, she introduced herself with a slight bow. Representing the Earth Confederation. Diplomat Prime Thexus, he responded, folding his primary limbs in the traditional Vexillor greeting. Voice of the Eternal Empire, they settled at the negotiation table, the humans seemingly comfortable in the atmospheric conditions calibrated for Vexillor physiology. Your environmental tolerances are impressive, Thexus observed. Ambassador Okoro smiled. We evolved on a world with extreme climate variations. Adaptability is our birthright. The preliminary discussions were formal but revealed little. The humans expressed concern over Vexillor expansion into systems they claimed were under their protection. Thexus countered that these systems had been charted by Imperial scouts millennia before humans achieved spaceflight. Yet you never colonized them, countered a human diplomat named Valentine. You merely claimed them. The Empire expands methodically, Thexus explained. These systems were designated for future development. While sentient species on those worlds developed independently, Okoro responded, they sought our protection when your expansion threatened their sovereignty. As the negotiations continued, Thexus signaled his scientific team to activate their discrete scanning devices. If they couldn't extract military intelligence, perhaps they could at least learn about human biology. The chief scientist, Zelvix, suddenly stiffened, staring at his readings in disbelief. Is there a problem? Ambassador Okoro asked, noticing the reaction. Not at all, Thexus smoothly interjected. But Zelvix was already approaching him with the scanner. Diplomat Prime, he whispered urgently. The humans, they've been modified. Modified? Thexus kept his voice low. Nanomachines throughout their bodies, neural enhancements, cellular regeneration systems. They're not purely biological. Thexus froze. All of them? Yes. Different configurations, but all present evidence of extensive technological integration. Ambassador Okoro cleared her throat. Since we're sharing observations, perhaps you'd like to know what we've observed about your physiology as well? The Vexillor delegation stiffened collectively. Your species has remarkable natural armor, she continued conversationally, though I noticed the genetic markers of extensive selective breeding. How many generations has your empire been shaping its citizen development? Thexus felt his blood run cold. Their most classified imperial program, genetic optimization, known to these humans? I don't understand your implication, he deflected. Of course, Okoro nodded too knowingly. Just as we don't understand your interest in our modifications, perhaps we should return to diplomatic matters. The negotiations continued, but Thexus couldn't shake his unease. Not only were the humans technologically advanced beyond all intelligence estimates, they had integrated technology into their very bodies and somehow knew the Empire's deepest secrets. When they recessed for the cycle, Thexus immediately contacted the Imperator. They're augmented, he reported. Every human we've encountered has been technologically enhanced at the cellular level. Zilvax's response was immediate. Terminate negotiations. Return at once. The humans, however, seemed unsurprised when Thexus abruptly announced their departure. We expected as much, Ambassador Okoro said. When you're ready for genuine dialogue, we'll be waiting. As they returned to their vessel, Thexus couldn't shake the feeling that the entire negotiation had been orchestrated, a performance for their benefit. The humans had wanted them to discover the augmentations. But why? The Imperial Palace on Vexillor Prime had stood for 10,000 years, its crystalline spires representing the unassailable might of the Empire. Today, those spires seemed brittle as Imperial intelligence delivered their report to the High Council. Idias, humans are not what we thought, Intelligence Director Crixus began, her voice uncharacteristically subdued. Our infiltration units have finally penetrated their information networks. The holographic display activated, showing a planet devastated by war, its surface scarred by weapons beyond Vexillor understanding. 2 centuries ago, humanity nearly destroyed itself in a global conflict. In the aftermath, facing extinction, they made a species-wide decision: integration with their technology. The display shifted to medical imagery, showing human bodies interwoven with microscopic machines. Every human born in the last century has been enhanced with neural interfaces, nanite colonies, and genetic modifications. Their bodies repair themselves, communicate wirelessly with their technology, and process information at accelerated rates. Grand Imperator Zilvax leaned forward. Are they even organic beings anymore? Yes and no, Crixus replied. They're a true hybrid species now, biological and technological in perfect symbiosis. But there's more. The hologram changed again, displaying the interior of what appeared to be a massive chamber deep beneath a mountain. This is what they call a consciousness backup facility. Every human's neural pattern is continuously archived. If their physical body dies, they restore them, whispered Science Director Zalzon in horrified fascination. They're functionally immortal. Their military implications are even more concerning, Military Commander Drexen added. Our intelligence now confirms that human ships are partially sentient, bonded neurologically with their crews. The vessels we encountered weren't just crewed by humans. They were extensions of human consciousness. The council chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. How did they develop this technology? Zilvax finally asked. Our civilization is 20,000 years old. Theirs is barely a blip in cosmic time. Necessity and different evolutionary paths, Crixus explained. When facing extinction, they merged with their creation rather than fighting against it. Where we sought to perfect our biological forms through selective breeding, they embraced technological integration. And their power generation? Asked Zalzon. Confirmed. They've developed technology to extract energy directly from the quantum vacuum. Their energy reserves are, for all practical purposes, unlimited. Zilvax's carapace darkened further. What are their intentions toward the Empire? That's where our intelligence becomes concerning, Crixus said. They view us as obsolete. Obsolete? Zilvax's mandibles clicked in outrage. Not as enemies to be conquered, but as a stagnant civilization. They refer to us as evolutionary dead ends, who've reached the limits of our biological potential. The insult hung in the air, made worse by the growing fear that the humans might be right. What do they want? Asked Admiral Vectra. According to their communications, they wish to guide species like ours toward technological symbiosis. They believe it's the inevitable evolutionary path for all intelligent life. They want to convert us, Zilvax realized, to make us like them. Yes, Crixus confirmed. They've already established relations with 12 other species in the galactic rim, sharing aspects of their technology. Those species are beginning their own integration processes. Zilvax rose abruptly. We cannot allow this. The purity of the vexillor form has been maintained for 20 millennia. We will not become abominations. With respect, Imperator, Zalzon interjected, we may not have a choice. Their technological advantage is insurmountable. The data suggests they could eliminate our entire fleet without significant losses. Then why haven't they? Challenged. Vectra. Because conquest isn't their goal, Crixus explained. They genuinely believe they're helping. In their view, they're offering evolutionary salvation. As the council debated frantically, a communication alert overrode the chamber's security protocols. The holographic display shifted without authorization, and a familiar human face appeared. Ambassador Okoro. Forgive the intrusion, Imperator Zilvax, she said calmly. But we thought it time for transparency. The council stared in shock at this unprecedented breach of their most secure facility. How did you access this chamber? Zilvax demanded. Your communication networks were simple to navigate, she replied. We've been monitoring your deliberations and feel you're operating with incomplete information. This is an outrage. Vectra shouted. It is necessary, Okoro countered. Your intelligence is partially correct, but you've misunderstood our intentions. We don't seek to eliminate or forcibly convert you. We offer a choice. The hologram expanded, showing hundreds of human ships now in orbit around Vexillar Prime, ships that had somehow bypassed every defense system undetected. We could have ended this conflict at any time, Okoro continued. Instead, we invite you to join us in the next stage of galactic evolution, as equals, not subjects. The Imperial Palace's Grand Audience Chamber had never hosted non-Vexillors before. Today, it held a delegation of humans standing before the full Imperial Council and the Grand Imperator himself. Ambassador Okoro stood at the center, flanked by military and scientific representatives. Behind them, a secure container hummed with unknown technology. For 20,000 years, Zilvax began, the Vexillor Empire has ruled the stars. We have subjugated worlds, uplifted primitive species, and preserved the purity of our evolutionary line. Now you suggest we abandon that legacy? Not abandon, Okoro corrected. Transcend. Your empire's achievements are remarkable, but you've reached an evolutionary plateau. Without integration, you face eventual stagnation. Science Director Zalzon moved closer to the container. Your integration process? It alters consciousness? It expands it, answered Dr. Nishimura, the human scientific lead. Neural capacity increases exponentially. Information processing accelerates. Lifespan extends indefinitely. But the essence of what makes a Vexillor remains intact. Abomination, hissed Military Commander Drexen. You would turn us into machines. No. More than your selective breeding turned you into something different from your ancestors, Captain Orlov countered from beside Okoro. We remain human, despite our enhancements, just as you remain Vexillor despite 10,000 generations of genetic manipulation. The observation struck uncomfortably close to truth. The modern Vexillor bore little resemblance to their evolutionary ancestors, their bodies and minds shaped by millennia of imperial breeding programs. You've invaded our most secure systems, Zilvax noted, positioned your fleet above our homeworld. Are we to believe these are the actions of benevolent guides? We know your history, Imperator, Okoro replied calmly. When encountering technological inferiors, the Empire conquers. We demonstrated our capabilities to prevent that outcome. And if we refuse your Dao guidance? Vectra demanded. Then we leave, Okoro said simply. We establish a boundary between human-protected space and the Empire. You continue your path. We continue ours. Murmurs spread through the council. The humans would simply leave, after demonstrating total military superiority? Why? Asked Zilvax, genuinely confused. Why offer us choice when you could demand submission? Okoro smiled, that distinctly human expression that still unsettled the Vexillors. Because true evolution cannot be forced. Integration without consent creates slaves, not partners. The species who've joined us chose their path freely. The container behind her opened, revealing a crystalline sphere pulsing with blue light. This contains the basics of human integration technology, Dr. Nishimura explained. Not weapons or starship designs, just the foundation of neural interfacing and nanite symbiosis. A beginning. A gift? Zalzon asked skeptically. A seed, Okoro corrected. Planted or not, the choice belongs to the Empire. The council chamber erupted in debate. Traditionalists argued for rejection and isolation from human influence. Progressives saw potential in controlled adoption of human technology. Military leaders remained suspicious of human motives. Through it all, the human delegation waited patiently. Finally, Zilvax raised a limb for silence. You offer us evolution on your terms, he said. Why should we trust that this seed won't corrupt the very essence of what makes us Vexillor? Because we were like you once, Captain Orlov responded. Suspicious, afraid, standing at the precipice of change. Ambassador Okoro stepped forward. When humanity faced extinction, we didn't surrender our humanity, we expanded it. Your empire stands at a similar crossroads. Not extinction, perhaps, but stagnation. The question isn't whether you'll evolve, but whether you'll choose how it happens. A hush fell over the chamber as Zilvax approached the crystalline sphere. His reflection distorted across its surface, 8 eyes staring back at him from a face-shaped by 20 millennia of controlled evolution. And if we accept this seed, he asked quietly, then we welcome the Vexillor Empire as partners, Okoro replied. Your knowledge of the galaxy, combined with our technological approach, would benefit all sentient life. Zilvax turned to his council. I have ruled for 3 centuries. In that time, I have conquered 18 systems and crushed 7 rebellions. I have upheld the purity of our evolutionary path. He paused. But I have never encountered a force like humanity. He faced the human delegation again. We need time to consider. Of course, Okoro nodded. Evolution is not rushed. As the humans prepared to depart, Zilvax approached Ambassador Okoro privately. The first time your ships appeared in our space, he said, your Captain Orlov called her vessel a light cruiser. Was that true? Okoro smiled slightly. Actually, by our standards, the reckless Ingenuity is considered an antiquated patrol craft. Captain Orlov commands it because she has a fondness for classic designs. Zilvax's mandibles clicked in what humans might interpret as a chuckle. That's a human warship? Impossible indeed. 3 cycles later, the Vexillor Empire made its decision. The seed would be planted, carefully, deliberately, with full imperial oversight. Evolution would continue, as it always had, but now with conscious direction. When the human fleet departed Vexillor space, they left behind not conquered subjects but potential allies. The empire that had stood unchanged for 20 millennia began its transformation. And throughout the galaxy, other ancient civilizations looked toward Earth with new understanding. The primitive humans, barely out of their gravity well, had accomplished what no other species had dared. They had embraced their technology not as tools, but as extensions of themselves. The distinction between organic and synthetic, a boundary, most civilizations had fought to maintain. Humans had simply chosen to ignore. In their voluntary evolution lay humanity's greatest strength, and the stars trembled at the implications.